I will tell you the truth immediately. If you want to stay healthy as you grow older, you must keep moving. I am 104 years old, and the single habit that protected my body more than anything else was regular exercise. Not extreme exercise, not heroic workouts. Just steady, consistent movement that I refused to abandon as the years passed. People often imagine that aging itself is what weakens the body. That is only partly true. What truly weakens the body is inactivity. When the body stops moving, the muscles shrink, the bones lose strength, the heart grows less efficient, and balance begins to fade. But when you continue to move, day after day, year after year, the body holds on to its strength far longer than most people believe. I did not understand the science of it when I was young. I simply noticed something. The men who remained active into their 70s and 80s were still walking confidently, still climbing stairs, still living independently. The ones who stopped moving aged much faster. Their posture changed. Their breathing became shallow. Their world slowly shrank. As the decades passed, doctors and scientists began explaining what I had already seen with my own eyes. Regular physical activity protects the heart. It keeps the muscles alive. It maintains bone density. It helps the body regulate blood sugar and body weight. It even protects the brain. Exercise is not simply about fitness. It is about survival. It is the difference between a body that declines rapidly and a body that adapts to the passing years. At 104, I can tell you this with complete honesty. Aging is unavoidable, but the speed of decline is not fixed. Movement slows that decline. Movement protects the systems that keep us alive. And that is why exercise, more than almost anything else, becomes the key to staying healthy as we age. Let me explain why movement matters so much as the years accumulate. When you are young, the body is forgiving. You can sit too long, eat poorly, sleep irregularly, and still feel strong. The machinery of youth compensates for many mistakes, but aging slowly removes those cushions. The systems of the body become more dependent on how you treat them. That is when exercise transforms from an optional habit into a biological necessity. The first system that benefits from regular exercise is the heart and the vast network of blood vessels that carry life through the body. Your heart is a muscle. Like any muscle, it grows stronger when it is used. When you walk briskly, climb stairs, cycle, or swim, your heart must pump more blood to deliver oxygen to working muscles. Over time, this repeated demand strengthens the heart's pumping ability. The chambers of the heart become more efficient, and the blood vessels remain flexible rather than stiff. As people age, stiff arteries are one of the silent dangers. When blood vessels lose elasticity, blood pressure rises, and the heart must work harder to push blood through the body. Regular exercise helps prevent this stiffening. It keeps circulation active and encourages the lining of blood vessels to function properly. This is one reason physically active people tend to have lower rates of heart disease, which remains one of the leading causes of death in older adults. But the heart is only one piece of the puzzle. Muscles themselves change dramatically with age. Beginning around middle age, the body slowly begins losing muscle mass in a process scientists call sarcopenia. If nothing is done to counteract it, muscle fibers shrink and weaken. This loss of muscle does not merely reduce strength. It also affects balance, posture, and the ability to perform everyday tasks. I have watched this happen to many friends over the years. One winter, they are walking confidently to the market. A few years later, they struggle to rise from a chair. Eventually, even simple movements become exhausting. But the remarkable thing is that this decline is not inevitable. Regular physical activity sends a signal to the body that muscle tissue is still needed. When muscles are used, whether through walking, lifting light weights, gardening, or even climbing stairs, the body maintains more of its strength. This strength matters enormously for independence. Strong legs allow you to stand up, walk safely, and maintain balance. Strong core muscles support posture and reduce the risk of falling. And falls, as many older people learn the hard way, can become life-changing events. A single fall can lead to broken bones, hospitalization, and a long decline in mobility. Exercise reduces that risk by preserving both strength and coordination. Bones themselves also respond to movement. Bone tissue is not static. It constantly remodels itself, depending on the stresses placed upon it. When bones bear weight during walking, resistance exercise, or other activities, the body strengthens the bone structure. Without these signals, bones gradually lose density and become fragile. This is how osteoporosis develops, and it is one of the major reasons fractures become more common later in life. By remaining active, we remind the body that strong bones are still required. Even simple activities such as daily walking or light resistance training can slow the loss of bone density and help maintain skeletal strength. Metabolism is another system deeply influenced by movement. As people grow older, metabolism naturally slows. Muscles burn energy even at rest. But when muscle mass decreases, the body's ability to use energy efficiently also declines. This contributes to weight gain, increased blood sugar levels, and metabolic diseases such as type 2 diabetes. Exercise improves the body's ability to regulate blood sugar. When muscles contract during physical activity, they absorb glucose from the bloodstream and use it for energy. Over time, this improves insulin sensitivity, allowing the body to manage blood sugar more effectively. For many older adults, this can mean the difference between stable metabolic health and chronic disease. Mobility is another gift of regular exercise. Aging often brings stiffness in joints and reduced flexibility in connective tissues. Without movement, joints gradually lose range of motion. Activities that were once easy, reaching overhead, bending down, or turning the body, become difficult. But movement keeps joints lubricated and functional. Gentle stretching, walking, swimming, or cycling helps maintain the natural mobility of the body. This is why active older adults often move with a fluidity that surprises people who assume aging must always bring stiffness. Balance is another critical factor that exercise preserves. The body's balance system depends on coordination between muscles, the inner ear, and the nervous system. As people age, this coordination can weaken if it is not regularly challenged. Exercises that involve controlled movement, such as walking on uneven ground, practicing balance exercises, or even simple strength routines, help maintain this delicate system. I can tell you from personal experience that balance is not something you notice until it begins to fade. When it fades, every step feels uncertain. But when it is maintained, walking remains natural and effortless. Perhaps one of the most overlooked benefits of exercise is its effect on the brain. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain and stimulates the release of chemicals that support the growth and survival of brain cells. Research has shown that regular exercise is associated with better memory, improved mood, and a reduced risk of cognitive decline. In other words, exercise does not only protect the body, it protects the mind. Many older adults fear losing their mental sharpness more than any physical limitation. Movement, remarkably, appears to be one of the most powerful tools we have to defend against that possibility. All these systems, the heart, muscles, bones, metabolism, joints, balance, and brain, are interconnected. When you exercise regularly, you support all of them simultaneously. When you become inactive, the opposite happens. Decline begins in multiple systems at once. This is why exercise becomes increasingly important with age. It acts like a signal to the body that life is still active, that strength is still required, that the systems of movement must remain operational. At 104, I do not claim that exercise stops aging. Nothing can do that. But I can say this with certainty. Regular movement slows the physical decline that many people assume is inevitable. And when you slow that decline, you gain something very precious. You gain more years of independence, strength, and freedom. But understanding the science of exercise is only part of the story. The real challenge is not knowledge. The real challenge is habit. Over the course of a long life, I have seen that most people already know movement is good for them. What they struggle with is consistency. Exercise protects the body only when it becomes a regular rhythm of life. When I was younger, people often imagined exercise as something reserved for athletes or the unusually disciplined. That misunderstanding caused many people to ignore the simple forms of movement that could have protected them for decades. They believed exercise required special equipment, intense workouts, or painful effort. In truth, the body does not demand perfection. It demands repetition. The human body evolved to move every day. For most of human history, people walked frequently, lifted objects, worked with their hands, and remained physically engaged with their environment. Only in recent generations has it become common for people to sit for long hours, surrounded by conveniences that remove the need for physical effort. This shift towards sedentary living has quietly changed how the body ages. When muscles remain inactive for long periods, they weaken rapidly. Circulation slows, energy levels fall. The joints become stiff, and the body gradually adapts to a smaller range of motion. Over time, this inactivity forms a cycle. The less people move, the harder movement becomes. Breaking that cycle requires something very simple: daily activity. You do not need heroic workouts, you need consistency. For most of my adult life, walking was the foundation of my movement. I walked through neighborhoods, through parks, and sometimes simply around my home when the weather was poor. Walking may appear ordinary, but it engages many systems of the body at once. The legs strengthen, the heart works steadily, the lungs expand, and balance is constantly practiced. Even modest daily walking can dramatically improve cardiovascular health and help maintain muscular endurance. But walking alone is not the only useful form of exercise. As people grow older, maintaining muscle strength becomes especially important. Strength does not require lifting enormous weights. Light resistance exercises, body weight movements, or lifting simple objects around the home can stimulate muscles enough to maintain their function. Strong muscles protect joints, support posture, and allow the body to perform everyday movements safely. They also help maintain metabolic health because muscle tissue plays a major role in how the body uses energy. Flexibility and balance should not be neglected either. Many older adults discover that stiffness appears gradually. Reaching down to tie a shoe becomes harder. Turning the body becomes slower. Gentle stretching and controlled movements help preserve the flexibility of muscles and connective tissues. Balance exercises are equally important. Something as simple as standing on one foot while holding on to a stable surface, practicing controlled stepping, or engaging in activities like Tai Chi can strengthen the systems responsible for stability. These practices may seem minor, but they significantly reduce the likelihood of falls. What matters most is that movement becomes routine rather than occasional. I often tell younger people that exercise is similar to brushing your teeth. You do not do it once and expect the benefits to last for months. You do it regularly because the body requires maintenance. Another lesson I learned over time is that intensity matters far less than persistence. Many people begin ambitious exercise programs only to abandon them a few weeks later because the effort feels overwhelming. A moderate routine that you can sustain for years is far more valuable than a demanding routine that lasts only a short time. When exercise becomes part of daily life, the body begins to adapt in remarkable ways. Energy levels increase rather than decrease. Movements become easier. Posture improves. The heart becomes more efficient. Even mood can change because physical activity stimulates chemical messengers in the brain that support emotional balance. I noticed this in myself many times throughout my life. On days when I remained physically active, I felt more alert and more capable. On days when I remained still for too long, my body felt heavier and my thoughts less clear. Another important truth is that exercise does not need to disappear with age. Many people assume that once they reach a certain age, physical activity should stop. In reality, the opposite is true. Movement becomes more important, not less. Of course, the type and intensity of exercise should adapt to the body's condition. Gentle walking, light strength training, stretching, and balance exercises are often safer and more sustainable for older adults. The goal is not to compete with youth, but to preserve function. Even small amounts of regular movement can produce meaningful benefits. Research has repeatedly shown that older adults who remain physically active experience lower rates of heart disease, diabetes, and mobility limitations. They also tend to maintain independence longer. Independence is something younger people rarely think about. But as the years accumulate, independence becomes one of life's most valuable treasures. The ability to walk confidently, rise from a chair without assistance, carry groceries, and move freely within your home preserves dignity and freedom. Exercise helps protect that freedom. Another overlooked benefit of regular movement is how it shapes attitude toward aging itself. When the body remains active, aging feels less like a rapid decline and more like a gradual adaptation. The body changes, yes, but it continues to function. I have met many people who believed aging would inevitably bring weakness. Some of them fulfilled that expectation because they stopped moving. Others refused to accept that narrative. They continued walking, stretching, and strengthening their bodies well into old age. The difference between those two groups was often astonishing. One group moved cautiously and slowly, their bodies fragile from years of inactivity. The other group carried themselves with surprising confidence. Their steps remained steady, their posture upright, their movements purposeful. The years had passed for both groups, but their bodies told very different stories. Regular exercise does not erase time, but it profoundly influences how the body travels through time. And that is the secret many people overlook. Healthy aging is not determined only by genetics or luck. It is shaped, day after day, by the choices we repeat. One of the most powerful of those choices is the simple decision to keep moving. If there is one lesson a long life has taught me, it is this: the body rewards movement for as long as it lives. I have reached 104 years, not because I discovered a miracle secret, but because I respected a simple truth that the human body was designed to move. Aging changes every person. Muscles lose some strength, bones become more fragile, and the heart must work harder than it once did. These changes are part of the natural passage of time. But what many people misunderstand is that the speed and severity of this decline are not entirely fixed. The body responds continuously to how we use it. When we move regularly, we send a message to the body that strength is still required. The heart remains active, the muscles remain useful, the bones continue to support weight, and the joints maintain their ability to move. These signals slow the deterioration that inactivity accelerates. When we stop moving, the opposite happens. Muscles weaken, balance fades, circulation slows, and independence begins to slip away little by little. Exercise does not guarantee perfect health, and it does not stop the years from passing. But it remains one of the most powerful tools we possess to protect the systems that allow us to live well. The beauty of exercise is that it does not require extraordinary talent or youth. It requires only the willingness to begin and the discipline to continue. A daily walk, simple strength movements, gentle stretching, and balance practice can protect the body far more than many people realize. At 104, I still believe the same principle that guided me for decades. Keep the body in motion, and it will serve you longer than you expect. If you wish to age with strength, independence, and dignity, remember this simple rule: never stop moving.